Good morning, everyone. Here we are again, doing some e-learning. I'm coming at you here from the comforts of my couch in my living room. So hopefully you are all in a nice, comfortable place as well. Just want to tell everybody I appreciate again the effort that you're given, the assignments that I'm seeing coming in. I know this is not ideal, having to sit there at home, go through all of this, and in many ways try to teach it on your own once I'm not around. But I do appreciate giving me a good effort, doing your best, and just ask you to remain patient, continue to try your best. And we're going to try and go through this fairly slowly so that you're not missing too much. And by the time we do get back together, hopefully that does happen sometime in the near future, we can kind of hit the ground running from that point and not have to go back over all of this and not fall too behind what you're going to need to know just moving forward, next year and years after that. So again, thanks. Appreciate everything you're trying to do to make this work, and I'll keep doing my best from my end. Today we're going to continue on with our congruence theme. We've dealt with triangles these last couple of days. We'll revisit the whole side, angle, side, angle, side, angle. There are some things I want to talk about after seeing some of the assignments that I want to make sure we're clear about. We will do that in the next couple of days. Today we're just going to make sure we understand the idea of congruence, how those statements are written, so on and so forth. So hopefully when we revisit the side, angle, side, angle, all that, put all these things together, you'll have a pretty good understanding by then. So that is my hope. So first handful of questions says complete each congruent statement by naming the corresponding angle or corresponding side. So when we look at number one, there's really a couple ways that we could have approached this. When you see that triangle CBA is congruent to triangle RSQ, when you are told to find what segment is congruent to segment CB, there's really a couple different ways we could do that. Since I want to know CB, look up here at this first triangle. See what I have highlighted? See how C is the first term and then B is the second term? The order is very important because if I now just look at this other triangle, the way this one over here is written, if CB is the first two terms in that first triangle, and then we wrote RS as the first two variables in the second triangle, what that is telling us is CB must be congruent to RS. So even if we didn't, and that's a segment, so even if we didn't have the triangles, which we do, so we'll look at the triangles here in a second, we could get this answer by simply understanding the order of these are important, that all of these match up for a reason. If we look at our triangles, the other way we can do this now, look at CB, because CB is the one that we wanted. So here is CB. Notice how CB just has one tick mark. What that would mean is we want to go over to this other triangle and just identify where we have the one tick mark. And here's the one tick mark. The other thing you just want to be careful of, where we had the one tick mark, notice how we put C first and then B second. That meant we went from C to B. So from C to B means we went from the one arc to the double arc. So over here, the one arc was R and the double arc was S, which would tell us again that RS would be our corresponding side. Okay. Number two, again, you could do it either way. When we want to know what segment is congruent to RS, notice how RS is the first two terms in the way the first one is written. If we go to our second triangle, we have XY, so our answer would have to be XY. If you didn't have that statement and you were just given the triangles, we would find RS again. So here is RS, and notice how RS is marked with one tick mark. And since we went from R to S, so we went in this direction from R to S, we went from the one arc to the double arc. So find over here where we have the one tick mark, and then we went from one arc to the double arc. So we would have said that that is X, Y, which we knew already because we had it written out. But if we didn't, that's how we can use our graph. Okay. So 3, 4, same thing. Angle or triangle KLM is congruent to triangle WVU. The answer to the question we're trying to find is angle K is congruent to what angle? If we look at the way they're written, notice how angle K is our first term. Angle W is our first term in the other triangle, so this would have to be angle W. That has to be our answer. If we needed to rely on the graph, so if we go to our graph, find angle K, so here's angle K. Notice how this is marked with the one arc. So if we venture on over to the other triangle, this triangle, find where we have the single arc. So here is the single arc, and that is angle W, just like we had already. That's how we can use our graph. All right, so for segment ZX, so a little trickier, not that it's terribly hard, but if we look at the way this is written up here, we want Z to X. So if we look at this first triangle, we went from Z to X. So we went from the third listed term to the first in our list of terms. So if I go to this second one, the third term would have been J, and the first term would have been L. So segment JL would have had to have been the segment that was congruent to ZX. Look at our graph, find ZX. So here is ZX. ZX had 3 tick marks. So if we come over here, here's where we had our 3 tick marks. We want to go in the correct order. So since this was Z to X, we went from the Z side, which had 3 arcs, to the X side, which had 1. So come back over here to the side that we know are congruent, and we have to go from 3 arcs, which is J, to the single arc, which is L. So we would still get J to L, okay? 5, now you're just going to do the marks to make sure you understand what the marks mean. Mark the angles and sides of each pair of triangles to indicate that they are congruent. So let's do the angles first. So mark the angles. So what we know, since T is listed first and V is listed first, angle T I'm going to do with 1 tick mark, and it has to be congruent to angle V. We would do 1 tick mark. If we go to the next angle, that would be angle R. So angle R, I'm going to do double ticks here, and we know that would have to be congruent to W. So if I double tick R, that means over here at W, I would need to put 2 ticks on W. We know those then are congruent. And then our third term, S and X. S angle is going to get marked with 3 tick marks. X then would have to have 3 tick marks, or arcs, I suppose. If we look at our sides, side TR, so find side TR, that's here. I'm going to make 1 tick. Has to be congruent to VW, so here's VW, that would get 1 arc. RS is here. I'm going to use 2 arcs. That's congruent to WX, so 2 tick marks. And then, kind of like this problem above, number 4, the other sides would have to be us going from S to T. S to T, we're going to do 3. And then in this one, it would be X to V. So that would, here's our X, here's our V. We would put 3 tick marks there. So that's how we mark those so we know what sides are congruent. All right, so same thing with 6. Angle N has to be congruent to angle V. So I'm going to mark those with a single tick. Angle M has to be congruent to angle T, so I'll put 2 arcs on M, and I'll put 2 arcs on T, so we know those are congruent. And then L has to be congruent to U, so I'm going to put 3 arcs on L, which would make me put 3 arcs on U. Same with all of our sides. N to M, we'll use 1 mark, or 1 tick. V to T would be 1 tick. If we go M to L, and then T to U, so M to L, we're going to do 2 ticks, and then T to U would be 2 ticks, and then the last one, L to N would be 3 ticks, which would then tell us that V to U would be 3 ticks. Okay, so that's how we can mark those. Let me pull this down, hopefully. Let's go next page. All right, so number 7, same exact thing. Looks like I gave you one more of these. Let's mark these. Angle X is congruent to angle B. Angle Y, put 2. is congruent to angle A, and then angle Z is congruent to angle C. We would do 3 of those. All right, then our tick marks X to Y would be 1. That would be congruent to BA, so 1. YZ, so where's YZ, is 2 tick marks. That would be congruent to AC, 2 tick marks. And then our final side would be this Z drawn to X, 1, 2, 3. And then C drawn to B, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Hopefully you guys can draw a little bit better than I can. All right, and then last 3 here. Write a statement that indicates that the triangles in each pair are congruent. So now we're basically writing this statement here. We want to write how these triangles are congruent to each other. Okay, so for this one, hopefully I can write somewhat neatly. We have our 2 triangles. I'm going to call this triangle 1. I'm going to start with that one. This is going to be triangle number 2. So I'm going to say triangle. We can order these any way we want initially. I'm going to make it easy, at least in my mind. I'm going to go from the 1 arc, which is R, to the 2 arcs, which is P, to the one that has 3 arcs, which is Q. So I'm going to call this triangle R, P, Q. And then that's going to be congruent to the second triangle. And if we just go in the corresponding order, from 1 arc to 2 arcs to 3 arcs, here's my 1 arc. Here, Z has to go first. Then I went to 2 arcs. Y has the 2 arcs. And then angle X has 3 arcs. So that's how we can write that congruency statement for those 2 triangles. Okay. Number 9, again, triangle 1, triangle 2. So I'm going to, again, follow that same pattern. I'm going to go from, oh, wait a minute. What am I doing here? So I'm going to follow that same pattern. I'm going to go from the single arc, which is H, to the double arc, which is I, to the triple arc, which is J. So I'm going to call that triangle HIJ. That would have to be congruent to triangle, and then do the same order. Single arc is Z, the double arc is X, the triple arc is Y. So that's our congruency statement. Okay, and then finally, triangle for number 10, I'm going to go B has 1 arc, D has 2 arcs, C has 3 arcs. So that's our first triangle. That's going to be congruent to triangle, where we're at, 1 arc is K, 2 arcs is J, and 3 arcs is I. And then that's how those 2 triangles are congruent. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. We'll revisit the whole side angle side stuff probably tomorrow, so we can kind of understand that. But that's how we can identify if triangles are congruent based upon either their graphs or based upon what we're calling a congruency statement, by just knowing the order is telling us which one of these sides and angles correspond to each other. All right, so hopefully that's easy enough. Hopefully that's something that's quick that you can now print out that assignment, do that in a few minutes, and then send it on to me so I can give you credit for it. So again, miss everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll see you again soon. Bye.